There are certain moments in life where one decision, just one, permanently changes the direction of everything that comes after it. You don't always see it happening. Sometimes it looks like an opportunity. Sometimes it even feels like luck. But the moment it's done, the clock starts ticking. This is a story about one of those moments.
And it begins on the worst night of a man's life. A night so ordinary on the surface that nobody could have predicted how badly it was about to go wrong. King Akbar was one of the most powerful rulers of his time. His name commanded respect across kingdoms. His soldiers were loyal, and his court was filled with brilliant minds. He was not a man who was easily rattled, but even kings can be humbled by a storm.
He had set out on a journey to visit a neighboring kingdom, riding with his soldiers through open roads under a clear sky. Everything was fine. Everything was moving exactly as planned. And then, without warning, the weather changed completely. The sky went dark so fast, it was almost unnatural. Thunder rolled across the hills, and the rain came down so hard it turned the roads into rivers within minutes. Horses reared and scattered. Soldiers lost their footing. The formation broke apart in the chaos. And when the storm finally settled into something bearable, Akbar found himself standing alone, in the middle of nowhere, soaking wet, with no sight of his men in any direction.
He called out. He waited. Nothing came back but the sound of rain and wind. He kept walking. After a few hours of moving through the dark, exhausted and cold, he saw a light in the distance. A small house at the edge of a village, smoke rising from inside. He knocked on the door. A washerman opened it. A poor man, simple life, honest work. He looked at the soaked stranger on his doorstep, saw the exhaustion on his face, and didn't hesitate for even a second. "Come in," he said. "You look like you've had a rough night."
He didn't ask who the man was. He didn't ask where he was from. He just let him in, gave him dry clothes to change into, sat him down by the fire, and shared whatever food he had. When the traveler finally relaxed, the washerman prepared a bed for him and told him to rest as long as he needed. It was one of the most genuinely kind things a person could do for a complete stranger. And that's what makes what happened next so devastating. Because somewhere between clearing the dinner table and blowing out the lamp, the washerman's eyes landed on something. The traveler's ornaments, set aside near the bed. Gold chains, diamond rings, jewelry worth more than this man could earn in 10 years of honest work, maybe 20. He stood there, staring at them for a long moment. And then a thought crept in. The kind of thought that sounds logical when you're tired and poor and the room is quiet and the stranger is asleep. He doesn't know this village. He doesn't know anyone here. He'll wake up, move on, and forget this place ever existed. Nobody would trace it back to me. Nobody would even look. He told himself it wasn't really stealing. He told himself it was practically already forgotten. And then, quietly, he walked into the room. Step by step, careful not to make a sound, he picked up the gold, the diamonds, everything. He carried it all out and hid it deep inside his home, then went back to bed and fell asleep feeling like a man who had just changed his own life. And in a way, he had, just not in the direction he was imagining. Morning came slowly. The traveler opened his eyes, sat up, and immediately noticed the empty space where his things had been. He looked around the room, he looked at the washerman's face, and he understood, completely and quietly, exactly what had happened. But here's what's interesting about this moment, because this is the part most people don't expect. He said nothing. No accusation, no confrontation, no anger. He simply folded the borrowed clothes neatly, thanked the washerman for his generosity, and walked out the door to continue his journey.
The washerman watched him go and thought he was the luckiest man in the world. He had no idea who had just walked out of his house.
Several hours later, the traveler arrived at the neighboring kingdom. The guards at the gate went rigid. The attendants scrambled. The ruler of that land came out personally to greet his arriving guest and stopped when he saw the state of him. No escort, no soldiers, traveling on foot, clothes that clearly weren't his own. "I am King Akbar," the traveler said. "And I had an interesting night." The room went completely still. Akbar told the story calmly, from the storm to the village to the washerman's hospitality to the moment he woke up and found everything gone. He wasn't emotional about it. He wasn't even particularly angry. He told it the way you'd describe something that had already resolved itself in your mind. But the king of that land was furious in a way Akbar wasn't. A man had accepted a stranger into his home, offered him food, clothing, and shelter, and then robbed him while he slept. That alone would have been a serious crime. But the stranger wasn't just anyone. He was a king, and that made it something else entirely. Guards were dispatched to the village before the conversation even finished. The washerman was brought in within hours. He denied it immediately, of course. He was confident even, because the ornaments were hidden, and a man's word against a poor washerman's denial felt like an argument that could go either way. And then the guards searched his home. They found everything exactly where he had put it, tucked away exactly as he had left it, untouched since the moment he thought he was safe. His face, by all accounts, went completely white. In less than 24 hours, the man who thought he'd finally found his way out of poverty had lost the only things that actually mattered: his freedom, his reputation, and the small but real dignity of a life lived honestly. He was imprisoned. The ornaments were returned to Akbar, who was then escorted safely back to his own kingdom with full honors. The storm had taken his soldiers. The theft had taken his treasure. But neither of those things had taken what actually defined him. And the washerman, who had everything to gain and chose the wrong way to gain it, ended up with nothing. What I think about this story: the washerman wasn't a bad person before that night. He was a poor man who made one decision when he thought nobody could possibly be watching. And that's exactly when it matters most. Not when your boss is in the room, not when your friends are watching, not when there are consequences lined up in plain sight. It matters most in the quiet moments, when you genuinely believe no one will ever know. Because someone always does. If not the person you wronged, then the guards who search your house. If not them, then the people who hear the story afterward. And if not them, then you, carrying the weight of knowing what you chose when you thought you were invisible. The truth has a way of surfacing, not always loudly, not always dramatically, but steadily, patiently, and almost always at the moment you feel safest assuming it's buried. So here's the question this story leaves behind. If you found something valuable that no one could trace back to you, no camera, no witness, no paper trail, what would you do with it? And the answer you give in that moment, quietly and honestly, is the clearest picture of who you actually are. If this story made you think, leave one word in the comments: honesty. That's all. Just that one word, and you'll know why you left it. And if you'd like more stories like this one, stories that actually stay with you after you've finished watching, you already know where to find them.